could have spoken at that time, what would they have said? What would they have said about you, or what would the projection of your future have been? When you look back, has that turned out exactly the way it was? It did. These are questions that we need to ask ourselves when we talk about buying the future. How can we buy that future that we want? Friends, that is part of what I'd like to talk about. And so there are three key concepts that I want to look at. One, when we talk about, remember, we're talking about this in the context of our leadership. Can we understand what leadership is about? Future in perspective. And why do I talk about future in perspective? Because we go through these things, and like I've already said, quite often the future contradicts the present. The future contradicts the present. It doesn't always turn out that way. But also then to come back and say, going back to the questions I've asked earlier, are there things that make us prone to success and others that make us prone to failure? Going back to look at what are the choices of today in the context of this future. So when we talk about leadership, I often ask, and people talk about, oh, leadership is this, getting people to move from one place to another, moving people, achieving results. Yes, all of that is true. I am somebody who's been passionate about leadership development. I invest a lot in leadership development, in buying books, in buying resources. There's a lot that I get and read because I'm passionate about the issue of leadership. And I can tell you, one, it comes down to influence. Leadership is influence. Your ability to influence people to action, your ability to influence people to deliver results without necessarily resorting to the position of leadership you might hold. So you might have a position of leadership. It might be MD. It might be, head of department. It might be teacher. It might be father. It might be mother. It might be LC chairman. Whatever it is, if I take away the power that comes to that role, will people still follow you? If people can't follow you, you have no influence and you're not a leader. People are following your position. So leadership boils down to influence, your ability to influence people, your ability to get people to follow you. But that's also informed by a number of things that I'm not going to get, if you get me started on those whole leadership thing, there's so many things. But I captured this thing where I said, one, who you are before what you are. And I mean, who you are is you, the individual. You, Fred, you, Abigail, I'm trying to see the names here, you, Joshua, you, Paul, who you are before what you are, before that title that you are given. That determines where people follow you or not. In fact, somebody said, leadership isn't what you do, leadership is who you are. Your character, your personality, your relations, how you work and relate with people. Two, what you stand for, your values. What are your values? What are your stated values? But most importantly, actions around your vision and values. I said talk is cheap. It's so easy to say, oh, I am a Christian, this is what I stand for. But when we look at you, is that what we see? You say these are our values as an organization. When I come into that organization, is that what I see? Many of us, as we grew in schools and everything, we saw teachers, we saw head teachers, people who told us, oh, we'll do ABCD. But you could see through certain things that just didn't make sense. So that impacts on your ability to influence, and there's a lot. But let me also say this, that leadership is like a muscle. It can be grown, it can be strengthened. And what does that mean? It means that today you might have influence, but you don't have that influence tomorrow. You probably know some of those kids we had in school who, high-flying kids, everybody wanted to associate with them. Today you look at them, sometimes no one follows them. No one is with them. They are by the wayside. Back in the day, hey, man, everybody wanted to associate with him or her. Where are they today? And yet some other people have grown in their leadership stature. Leadership grows, but leadership that's in breadth can diminish. Your influence can diminish depending upon what you do. So when we talk about buying the future, we need to look at this. This is a sobering reality. I don't know how old you are as you're in this school, but at one point you were like that little boy, and then you grow. Chances are many of you in this school are between the 13 and 61-year gap. Those are ages where we're strongest. We have our strength. We can do so many things, at 13 to 25. Man, the world is good. Yeah. I want to do this when I grow up. I want to work here. I want to do this. You have so much strength. There is a lot that you can do. Some of you at that point are graduating from school. Some of you are very active in sports, strong and all of that. 25 to 61 now, you have children, you have begun getting grandchildren and stuff like that. But you can see the body shapes changing. It doesn't matter which way you go. You will ultimately end up almost where you started. The only question is, in what state do you want to be at a particular age? There are some who are between that age of 13 and 25, and they are like a 61-year-old. There are some in that 25 to, you meet a 50-year-old and you think he's a 70-year-old. And you meet another 70-year-old who you think is a 50-year-old. What do you want to look like? That is in the future. Question is, how do you buy that future today? We will all die. And we will all go to. So part of this is built off the book by a gentleman called Mensa Otabil. It's titled By the Future, Learning to Negotiate for a future better than your present. And it comes out of the realization that the future often contradicts the present. The future often, unfortunately, contradicts the present. The things we set out we want to do, but we don't always get them, while others get them. What's the difference? But also, one of the key underlying messages in there is that the future is cheap. It doesn't matter how expensive things look like today. The future is cheap. Today, we're about 48 million people. If you tell me to buy a piece of land, 50 by 100, 100 by 100 in Buate, Chira, it's going to cost me a 50 by 100, might cost me about 100 million shillings. Is it expensive? Yes, it is expensive. But guess what? In 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, it might be 300 million shillings, which makes you realize that, you know what? The future is cheap. If you do the stuff today, the right things today, don't give up on the cost. One of the key messages that come up when you buy it's one of the best books that I can tell you can ever get, and I encourage you to get it. The future is cheap. The future, for those who believe in it, decide to spend on it now. Those who live in the future, those who see what is coming, they make the right choices. They buy the future now. They don't buy it then. And they buy it cheap. They will invest in their books today. And later they're like, wow, thank God I did the books then. Thank God I did my diploma, my master's, my PhD back then. It only gets harder as the children come in, as all of these different things come in. We shouldn't estimate the importance of the present. Some of us feel like we have arrived. Some of us feel like, man, this whole thing, do I really need to go for this extra studies? Do I need to, do this investment? Do I, and we will delve into, as we look at the story of Jacob and Esau, Man, you know what? For me, sort me out today. Sort me out today. This is, and you eat all your stuff today, only to get to realize that, man, there was a lot more ahead of you. And that's what we will read as we, look at the story of Jacob. This book talks about Jacob and Esau, with Esau coming and saying, man, you know what? I'm hungry. And Jacob, who lived in the future, is like, man, give me your what? Give me your birthright. Give me your birthright. I give you, man, I'm too hungry. Here, take. He overestimated the importance of his anger. Some of us are in comfort zones and we're like, man, it's changed. The reality is, my dear friends, and we're talking about this with somebody, every 10 years, and I think it's about 10 years, I forget the exact years, there's a major shift in the way things work. You go now today, if you go back 15 years ago, that iPhone was not there. Today it's part of you. If you go back 15 years from today, you ask yourself how many people had internet? How many people today, if you don't have it, how can you not have a phone? How can you not have internet? Things have changed. The things that we took so importantly. I was with somebody, there's an auntie of mine who wanted me to download something, a recording of YouTube onto a DVD. And I went to ask, and everybody's like, what DVD? Where is she going to play the things from? And now you put it on a flash. And I was like, what? Very soon, even the flashes will have no spaces on the gadgets. But 15 years ago, we were using floppy disks. Then we went to CDs. Then things are changing. Question is, are you anticipating? Do you know what is coming tomorrow? In your field, in your space, in the space you want to be in, you who wants to be an engineer, doctor, lawyer, whatever it is. Do you know what is coming ahead? And are you doing anything about it? Or do you feel like, man, you know what? I am the boss here. I see so many people who were CEOs 10 years ago and they're nothing today. They never invested in the future. They felt like where they were was very important. It was good. Don't overestimate the importance of the present. You will be rendered useless, unfortunately. Our paradigms, our mentality, and I will break this down. Our mentalities determine how far we can go. Leadership. Remember, I talked about leadership is influence. So the things you do today are going to determine if you're not relevant, if you don't have the relevant knowledge, if you don't have the relevant influence, if you don't have the ability to connect, to relate with the people. Somebody said, my friend, you say, TikTok, what, those things. If that's where people are, and that's where they're getting things from and they're connecting, and for you, you're like, no, I will not get there, I will not connect. My friend, you will not have the ability to influence the people. And therefore, when it comes down to your future, you will not be able to be a leader. So you've got to determine where things going. How can I be? Yes, I don't want to get sucked into that, but how can I still influence? So I'm bringing this back to the issue of leaders. What is the leadership? What is a paradigm? Paradigm is a mental state. Your way in which you see the world, the way in which you take in and reflect. And how do we know your paradigm? We know your paradigm by our observation of you, of how you spend your time, where you spend your time, and what the kind of things you do. Hunters, the hunter paradigm, relates to people who, calling them hunters, their strengths, their ability. Hunters are able to locate prey. They see opportunity, hey, go, pursue it. They have the ability to locate, they will go into the field, chase, track that animal, kill it, deliver, bring back that trophy. Yeah, I've achieved. Oh, I've achieved this. Can you imagine? I delivered this. I went, we went out in the hunt today. We tracked the animal. And you know what? They come back. I equate hunters to fishermen. Go to the lake side. You went, no, the lake is here. I will go and get the fish tomorrow. We've eaten for today. You go and work. Hunters hunt one animal at a time. They will go, the fisher folks will go to the lake today and they will go to the lake tomorrow and they will go because they believe it's there, it's abundant. Because they have gone, they operate off adrenaline. They have gone, worked hard to achieve that. They're like, hey, they believe they have achieved a lot because they have worked hard. They equate activity with productivity. So if you're having a conversation, and I mean, I still remember one of my conversations with my manager at Hima Cement in my first job one time. We hadn't achieved the results, but I'd really worked hard. And I got to him, I said, Bob, I need to get my, this score. I did this. He told me, Fred, shareholders appreciate hard work, but they pay for results. I know you did all of those things. I recognize and I will actually capture it in your note. But did we get the results? No, we didn't. Your hard work does not change the fact that you did not achieve the results, that you did not hit your targets, that you did not save those finances you needed. Your hard work does not change. So don't get carried away like a hunter in, oh, no, I've worked hard. Yes, thank you. But where are the results? It doesn't change the fact that there's certain things needed for the today and the present. Hunters hunt new prey every day. They're physical labor bound. When their energy goes, boom. If they had an accident on a border, something cut their leg, they're gone because they live in the present. How about the farmers? What about the farmer's paradigm? A farmer thinks about seasons. A farmer thinks about where are we today? Today it's raining, tomorrow it's going to shine, the other time it's going to do this. They live in the future. A farmer thinks about what do I need to do today to be ready for the planting season tomorrow. It's a way of thought. And therefore, when you bring it to our lives, in practical terms, they're thinking, what is the future going to require tomorrow? What do we need to do today? What is going to be required in my field tomorrow? What is it that I need to do today? About that, what tomorrow? Yesterday, I went to pick a friend of mine from Nalia, and we were three people heading out to my farm, and we reflected on how back then in Nalia we started this running group, and it just kept growing and growing, and more people. We dropped off the running because of health reasons, and others continued. And then one of the people told me, one of the guys we started with here was telling us the kids who are going to nursery as we ran and now have joined the running club, and now they're doing a lot better than we did. Things change. Now, for those of us, some have not transitioned, to others we stopped running because our bodies kind of gave way. Did we anticipate what else was going to come that we needed to look at? What is it that is changing in your field? A farmer thinks about what's coming. Let's till the land now. We need to sow them because the rains are coming in the future. Or we can't eat the entire seed. We've got to leave some for planting. Hunters, the farmer mindset does not just live in the today. The farmer mindset lives in the future. Uganda has 48 million people today. It will have 100 million people in 2050, 27 years from now. What will be needed then? What will be the impact on accommodation, real estate, on food, and ABCD? We were talking about a gentleman. There's a gentleman whose properties have been pushed out everywhere in the on the papers, he has so much property in Kololo. I'm sure he can't afford that properties. He couldn't afford those properties today if he had to buy them. But he bought them long ago within this entire area. And people are like, how did he buy those things? That man started buying properties in the 60s, 70s, when they were cheap, when no one was thinking ahead. Today, it's a large estate. As leaders, what are going to be the challenges of tomorrow? Leaders solve challenges. So therefore, what you need to do today, how can your field be of help in getting you to deliver and change things? In the case of Esau looked at what he had. He had a birthright. It didn't seem much. He gave it away. The Bible in Hebrews 12:16 calls it the Esau way is the profane way. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person like Esau, who for one morsel of food sold his birthright. For you know that afterward, when he wanted to inherit a blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place for repentance, though he sought it diligently with tears. God has blessed each and every one of us with talents. God has put us in different spaces and given us things that can take us to great space. How you use it, how you trade it matters. And if you don't, I don't think any of us wants to be equated to a fornicator. But that's what the Bible says. These are not my words. You trade that value that you have. You've gone to that very good school. It has given you strong foundations. Your parents did something great. What are you doing about it? If you take that for granted, you're not investing in it to grow it like a farmer, to say, hey, what I have today is not enough. My parents have given me a good foundation. Now I need to grow. Now I need to. You will wake up tomorrow and discover you're irrelevant because newer people have come through, younger people have come through and taken over. And you can't catch up with them. Or maybe you can, because in the case of Esau, his father eventually told him, when you become restless, and that means when you wake up and decide, you know what? Okay, that is enough. Let me find my way back. You will be able to recover and you will go far. But if you don't do that, you will go down. So my reflection questions for you on this. In what ways have you been an Esau? In what ways are you devaluing your future? Now, I appreciate that you may never have thought about it that way, and that's okay. But guess what? If you are not growing, nurturing that which you were given, that which God has given you, those talents God has given you, the value, the exposure you have, you've been trained, you've been taken to different spaces, you have, had an interface, you will find that you devalued your future because a couple of years down the road, it won't make sense. We were laughing. I have a group of my friends, they call them Breakfast Boys. We meet, every Saturday, and we have a place that we go to. And we were laughing yesterday, and somebody said, you know what? 10, 15 years ago, when you went to town, when you went to any of these banks and places, you almost knew everybody. There was somebody who knew you. And he joked and said, as we grow older, you suddenly realize the few people you know. And the time is coming when the only core people we know and can call on are these people that meet with on a regular basis. Have you nurtured relationships? Because things are changing. I had a teacher who used to say, if you're not careful, you wake up and discover you're dead. And indeed, it may not be the physical death, but you could find yourself living a lonely life because you have taken choices that have not invested, nurtured that which you have. and your struggle. I call it sacrificing that which matters most at the altar of that which matters least. And sometimes that which matters least is comfort. You know, people say, man, I don't have the energy to do those extra books. And then you find another person reading. There's a friend whose profile popped up on LinkedIn in the course of this week. And when I checked her out, she was, I think, a year below me at university. I checked out like, I haven't seen, peace. Then I just went in and started. She finished. She did a 3-year course. I did a 4-year course. I was ahead of, so we all finished in 2001. I noticed she started on her master's, her first master's, like a year later. She did SCCA. No, she did SCCA, did her first master's. She recently completed her second master's in public administration from Harvard. The boards she's on, the expo. You're like, this is a product of somebody who's invested. They invested in their sweat. Today they're where they are. That influence, that leadership influence has grown. Remember, we started by talking about influence. Leadership is influence. So if you get to a point where the knowledge and skills, you're still holding on to the things you had 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, you will be irrelevant. And when you're irrelevant, you will not be able to influence. And if you can't influence, you are not a leader. So you need to think about it that way. So what is it that you're sacrificing? Is it relationships? Is it your health? Is it your academics? What is it? As we talk about this, I reflected on a course I did some time back, and it was on the healthy lifestyle of leaders. And in one of those, I took a few excerpts from that presentation. And the person asked, why do many leaders die young? Yeah, this is the observation that I made. Of all their assets, leaders take health and body most for granted. Many of them, high performing, high achieving, with the result that most of them, most of the time, are unable to achieve their best potential in most areas of endeavor because of lack of energy, decreased functional capacity, declining performance ability, illness, disability, and premature death. And this was somebody who was making he made an analysis. And, you look at some of those I just extracted from that class. Meles Zenawi, he used to be the prime minister of Ethiopia, died at 58. 57. Hugo Chavez, that vibrant 50 years, 57. Ghana's president, 67. Steve Jobs, for all the things they did, 56. Guys, these are young ages. Nigeria president, Umar Yar'Adua, at 58. These are young ages. But look at the 58 year. Just look at even his face alone. If I didn't put his ages, you might have thought he's 60 or 70. Look at John Mills. And so what did they say? When they looked at them, they were all very domineering and results driven, undervalued, and undaunted, unrelenting, unflinching. They burned the midnight candle to get things to happening for their areas, for their countries, for their, organization. But all were typical cases of a willing spirit and neglected flesh. That in turn turned into weak flesh, sick flesh, and dead flesh. They prioritized the mission ahead of them. What's the goal of this? You know what I'm talking about? By the future. If you want to be leaders who influence for a long time, look after your health as well. It's not just about your intellect. Invest in your health as well. Invest in your ability to live, work healthy, do exercise, make the right choices today. When you're making the right choices today, eating well, doing the exercise, sleeping well, doing all of that, you are buying the future. Remember, the future is cheap if purchased today. If you don't, even before you die, the wealth and stuff you have accumulated will be spent on trying to recover your health. And it might be too late. I jogged, the course of this week, I think Wednesday morning, and I realized how I was struggling, just I've done about 3 kilometers, and I was like, what is this? I used to play rugby. I was an active athlete and all of that. I was like, what has happened to you, friend? And it's because I'm not regular. Therefore, I am devaluing my present. So as I'm telling you about some of these things, I'm looking in the mirror myself and saying, am I doing the right thing? I just chose to pick up a few people. And I tried to call. I thought about this young man. Not many of you might know him. He's a friend. He's a son of some of my friends. And I've been observing him, for a while now. I drive kids to school and all. And I see him walking to the gym. He finished his A levels, took a gap year before he goes to uni. And diligently. And I know the father. The father is a very diligent, health, health free, does his gym and all of that. And I can see it's caught on with the son. You'll find him walking. It's not about border, taxi, whatever it is. Walking, going to the gym, working out. I don't have to tell you what this guy is going to look like in 30 years' time, 40 years' time from now. If he maintains the discipline, it's called Bradley Hill. If he maintains the discipline, there is no money for guessing where he will be. In the course of this week, I was talking, I had Sale at home and we were chatting, and somebody asked, we're talking about how difficult life can be, a man, responsibility. And somebody said, think about Museveni now. How does he do this thing? A man at his age, at 80, and you think. And we said, we all reflected on a couple of things. Even in our 30s and 40s, many of us may not be able to do the things this man, His Excellency, does. But we reflected, he has been pursuing this agenda from his secondary school days, working towards this, very intentional, university and all of that. He's done exercise, doesn't do alcohol, doesn't smoke. You look at his meals, he talks about, and he will tell you, this is what I eat, that he doesn't eat certain things. Because of that, today, he is alive doing some of those things that others couldn't handle. I've already showed you many leaders who died young. He bought the future back then. If he wasn't doing that, it was completely different. I wanted to put a video of the gentleman on the left. You don't know him, it's called Professor Dr. Bomb something. I forget his other name. I met him in Nigeria last year in October. He was leading us in morning aerobics every morning, working hard. All of us, 30-year-olds, 20. If I showed you videos here, you're not saying, what is that? He looked like a 50-year-old guy. He is 71 years. What am I saying? If you are going to be a leader, leadership is hard. Leadership is tough. Leadership requires you to handle so many things, the ability to, up your leadership capacity. The kind of people you'll find Museveni is maybe battling with the West, with the East. Local problems, financials, and everything. Wars here, there. China wants you to do this, US wants you to do the other. This district wants you this, you want votes, you want all of those things. You must have a good mental capacity. And for that to happen, you need to look after your body. But you do it now, you don't do it in the future. The future is cheap, my dear friends. So what are some of my parting shots for you as we talk about buying the future? One, the future belongs to those who live in it. Those who can anticipate what is coming. Those who are able to reflect and say, Lord, what is it that we need to tell the future? And be able to say, okay, fine, this is what is happening. These are the trends. What I have here today is good. These grades are excellent. This degree is excellent. But what is it that is going to be required tomorrow? We're going to get to a point where your degrees don't matter. The people will say, okay, fine, what will the future need? Because that's what leadership is about. It's about vision, it's about anticipating, it's about seeing challenges, and it's about, addressing those challenges, innovating things that people might say, those things, why are you even doing this? Why are you even bothering? When Noah was building the ark for all those many years, the rain came, the flood came. The future belongs to those who live in it. Hunters live in today, farmers live in the future. What delivered the present will not necessarily deliver the future. Again, I go back to the concept around leadership. Leadership is influence. It's your ability to influence people and rally them, get them to move to where you want them to move. That can only happen if you continuously invest in yourself. You might be an attractive girl. You might be a handsome young boy that every girl wants to associate with, every boy wants to associate with. Guess what? A time comes where your beauty is not what determines whether people are attracted to you or not. Where it's your substance. And so, what is it that you're doing? When it attracts people to you, will they stick around you? Will they keep with you? The fact that you went to a great school, the fact that you got good grades, the open doors, the fact that you went to a good family, you were actually in a good family, may have opened certain doors like where you are today. That does not necessarily determine where you will be tomorrow. It's the choices you make today. A top grade today is really irrelevant tomorrow. My dear friends, as long as you know you will go far. Otherwise, you'll be like one of those who keep saying, oh, this is what we did, this is what we did, our days. And therefore, I like to give you this. It's one of those that I picked from one of my bosses at Coca-Cola back in the day, called the Triple R. Reinvent yourself to remain relevant or face redundancy. Dear friends, if you want to grow, continually invest in yourself, reinvent yourself. How can you work? How can you change with the degree that you have to get to something else? What else is the future in that area? How is delivery within that area of yours working? Robotics is coming. How is it going to impact you? Reinvent yourself to remain relevant or face redundancy. And redundancy can be a very lonely space to be in. You don't want to be redundant. You don't want to be redundant. So think about this. What is it that I need to do? How am I growing? Every 16th, I get a pop-up on my calendar that asks, how have you grown as a leader this month? So I have this whole pile of books that I am yet to read, Simon. I'm reading. Is it easy? No, it isn't. But these days, as I wake up my older boy to read at 4:30 in the morning, I use it as an opportunity to grow that muscle. Whether I'm reading my Bible or reading any of these books, I use it as an opportunity to grow. But reinvent yourself to remain relevant. What delivered the present will not. Great things happen when opportunity meets preparedness. We know the story of the foolish virgins in the Bible. But also, for you today, when opportunity comes up, 10 years, 20 years after you graduate, and say, oh, we need this. Are you still picking up what you delivered back then? Why are you bringing on board something else that you have? What other course? What other muscle have you built? What other knowledge? What other skill have you developed and attached? That might be the difference between you and the next person that is taken or the next person that is left behind. When you try to scamper to try and get the opportunity has come, leadership has come, hey, you know what? They're considering you for minister, they're considering for this leadership position, and you did not prepare for it, you're going to panic. And you can't necessarily sort yourself out well. My dear friends, the future is cheap if you buy it today. Buy it today. Read a book. Somebody said that somebody who has a theory, he said, very few books go to 20 chapters. So if you purpose to just read 2 chapters a day, 2 chapters of each book, you're not necessarily reading from this side, 2 chapters, you'll find that in every 10 days you have finished a book. Every 10 days you have finished a book. 1 month you have finished 3 books. Summarize. What are my key takeaways? How am I going to use it? Buy the future. Invest in yourself today. We think we don't have time until you realize that, look, there is a lot more. This is what I'd say, and I like using this a lot. I say, it doesn't matter how hard doing the right thing is today. When you look at it back in the future, the pain of regret you will have then will feel like it's 2 times compared to, and what seemed like so big then will suddenly fade into like 2 grams of pain. So it's 2 grams of pain today compared to 2 tons of regret. You don't buy this piece of land today that's going for 10 million shillings. You're like, man, 10 million shillings, a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? When you're looking back, the pain when you wish you had bought it, yet somebody else who bought it actually borrowed money to go and buy it, and now they're selling it at 100 million shillings. You'll be like, I wish, I wish. When you eat your seed, when you don't save, and suddenly somebody who earned half your salary and was diligently saving it, when we look and compare you in 5-10 years time and it doesn't compare, they regret. Feel like suddenly what you thought was discipline was too painful will feel like 2 grams compared to 2 tons. The regret is always higher. Now, you might be here and saying, but look, I've already wasted time. I'm 20, I'm 30, I'm 40, whatever it is. Here's the thing. I keep telling people the next best time is now. The next best time is now. Change your paradigm. By the grace of God, I've had the opportunity to travel different parts of the world and all of that. I find here we're thinking, oh man, 50 is approaching 60. I have to retire. I have to leave. What am I going to do on ABCD? I go to the US and the 60-year-old is going to do his master's, probably his second master's. A 60-year-old here is not thinking about a master's. He's thinking about how do I survive for the evening of my life. But because the other one thinks and believes they still have long life left in them, they are investing in themselves even at 60, even at 65. And no wonder at 80, 70 something, they're still coming here to start with us because they're continuing to invest in themselves. So, dear friends, if you had to take away something, remember this. The future, it doesn't matter how difficult things may seem like today. Compared to the future, if you invest yourself in the right things, make the right calls today, The future is cheap. Do the right thing. Just purpose to do the right thing. Just purpose to do one thing. You will grow in influence. The only reason as to why I have been called to talk about this topic today is because, one, I am always reading about leadership. I am always, volunteering and leading in different spaces. And because of that, I have grown my muscle. My degree is in forestry. But because I'm doing this, I have relevance today. What relevance will you have tomorrow? When your office is taken away, when your boss is taken away, when your godfather is taken away. So get a hold of that book. By the Future by Mensa Otabil. You will like it. Thank you very much. I will stop at this. I purpose to talk for about an hour and then, just leave an opportunity for about 30 minutes for us to interact, ask questions, and, take it on from there. Thank you. Back to the studio.
Thank you so much. My internet is not so good, so I don't know if I am showing, but I'm so grateful. I have learned a lot. Sometimes we don't actively think about these things, but like I remember one of the things about buying the future, it's about physical activity. It doesn't seem very important, or that it won't affect you in a very big way. But I remember one of some years back, maybe 2019, we went for a mission trip in Kenya, and it was I've forgotten the name of the place, but it was like at the base of Mountain Kilimanjaro. So we wanted to go and minister to some people, but because many of the people we went with were not fit, we ended up going like 4 people because we had to climb some path. So maybe there was even a better teacher, but they couldn't go up. So yeah, and it was, and when I thought about what you were talking about, especially with the leaders, I remember that time, and I realized that things can affect you in ways you don't even you're not even expecting. But I am very grateful for this lesson. I'm hoping everyone else has been blessed, especially with the parting shot. I have so many things that I have written down to start actioning, but I'm going to give other people a chance to ask questions, to share comments. You can write in the chat, but I would prefer if you put up your hand or you unmute and you speak. But I would like to request Effie to go first. Is she still there? Effie, because previously I cut her short. I hope she's still able to just share her reflection. But anyone can put up their hand.
I'm still here. May I please just have a minute to regroup? That was actually a whirlwind of information. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Fred Chaka.
You're welcome.
Anyone who is ready?
So I thought I'd use about an hour and then have interactions and stuff like that. You want to lead, you want to grow.
We have a question in the chat. Let me read it.
Yeah, can see what have you.
Thank you so much. What have been your greatest challenges as a leader, and how have you overcome them?
Powerful. That's a very interesting question. Thank you very much for that question. The more I've reflected on this soul leadership, I think my greatest challenges have been myself. You know what I mean? Myself, in a sense that I realized that I needed to grow and invest. I don't just like looking at through the window to see who to blame when things are not going right. I look in the mirror. For my personality, I find that I work with a big picture and then work with people who can, run and deliver. And where I have trusted and things haven't gone wrong, I have been beaten. Where I have not had the ability to relate better, I have found that it's let me down. And so my biggest challenges, which have also been my greatest growth opportunities in leadership, have been how do I up my ability to, or my leadership muscle and capacity to influence people, to influence difficult people, to influence people who don't agree with me. And I have invested myself in a lot of knowledge and understanding personalities. So I read a lot about that. I'm now a licensed practitioner of something called Insights Discovery that helps me understand how people process things differently, and therefore I need to connect differently. I will relate to Abigail differently from the way I will relate to Joshua, because you are different personalities. You learn, you appreciate things in a different way. So it's really been challenges around knowing how to work with different people, but also leading from the front. While I'm a big picture person, as a leader, I find that you need to go into the details sometimes, and you can't. And when you don't go into that detail, you miss out on a lot, and people will see through you when you're not deep enough. And so I find that I have to lead from the front. If I can't lead myself, others are not going to follow me. My influence will be short-lived. Those would really be my key observations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Peter will go next, then I will read the question after. Or maybe if you'll answer it as
Okay. Okay. We'll go with your order. Peter and then the question.
Yeah, you're done.
Thank you. Thanks, Javi. I caught the tail end of your presentation. It was shared on the market. And if I had known earlier, I would have been here from the onset. But I caught the tail end, and your sharing is always very insightful. I hope it has been meaningful to the audience that is here. And it is sad that much as it was shared on a wider audience, there are not many more attendees, because I'll tell you, all listeners on this call, that Fred is a very special individual. I've interacted with him in many fora. One of the things that we take away from this interaction is the need to improve yourself. You had the illustration of a 60-year-old doing a master's. Here, the tendency in our setting is that you finish a degree and it is a time to take on the world. But many a time, that degree is just the beginning to the rest of our lives. Fred, you brought out that the continuous improvement through reading, and you shared the book. One thing that I've found very prominent amongst ourselves is that we have a very ridiculously poor reading culture. So throw some light on alternatives to reading. I know there are ebooks, there are podcasts, and it would be nice to encourage people's absorption comes through different media. There are some of us who, when we listen in, we pick up. But if you give somebody a text to read, they say what is hidden in the detail. Yeah, you tell somebody read a book and it goes like, how many pages? 100. So he reads the forward, and by the time he's on the 10th page, he's distracted. But when you're listening in, so people on this call, interest yourself. These ebooks and podcasts may cost you some money, not that prohibitive, but learn something every day. So Fred, thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you very much for those kind words, Peter. Let me just picking through off my desk here. This is just my work desk books I have. Again, coming out of how do I want to do. This is a book by one Bishop Titus Masika, Mindset Change for Community Transformation. A man giving very practical ways which things can change. I like reading faith-based books as well. There's this one called the Old Testament template. I'm doing this of a certain leadership and governance program. There's this one. What does that do? These relate to if I am going to be a leader and working in these spaces, I need to figure out how do I work. I just received this pack in December. Oh, a pile of books by Patrick Lencioni and many things. I invest a lot in books. But now guess what? You'll be shocked by this. I don't like reading because I'm not a fast reader. And because of that, it gets frustrating. So you might say, you might be there with an excuse for IMS books, and guess what? I have to read them. So what tips would I give you? One, I already gave you one of those tips. Purpose. Read 2 chapters a day. If I pick any meeting, how many is it? The pages, the chapters are not few, the chapters are not many. You'll find about, again, 10 chapters. If I do two chapters a day, it will be done in a couple of weeks. Can I fail to read 2 chapters a day? No. How much time do you spend on your social media? And agree. This month, let us study this book and discuss it. What are you thinking? Pick highlights. 1 year, you'll have done 12 books. Pick those books that are going to be relevant. If I'm doing this up and out of poverty or, many transformations, at the end of the day, I will have built up my muscle. Now, I'm telling you this, in my first year at university, that was 97, 98, we had Guild GRC campaigns. I campaigned in my first year and got into the GRC. And I was going down on the political route. Until second year, when my brother invited me to join something else called ICT, and I stepped away from the plan. It would have just been, hey, you make the noise and you learn things along here. Today, if I had to find myself back in that route of political leadership, my muscle is a lot better built. These books and things that I'm reading have helped me to have a better appreciation. And so it's not just about NRM, DP, FDC, whatever it is. It's really about how do you grow. So you cannot avoid reading. So I've talked about read a chapter or 2 a day. Purpose, that's your formula. 1, do discussion groups of people. It will help you achieve books faster. And the other is get training on reading. There's what they call speed reading. And you can read YouTube and ABCD. There are tips for you to learn how to speed read. And so you might quickly skim through a book and get the essence of the book. So even with my slow reading, I have opened up, skimmed through my books. When I have to train, I know where to get what content. That's the other thing. Purpose to teach. Purpose to teach somebody things that you have learned, whether it's your fellow students or your younger people or other people, older people, share. I believe when you teach, you learn better. So do that. That's going to help you out. So those are different tips that I can give you about reading. They will help you out. Avoid reading. Look for, there are book summaries that are also available. Go to YouTube, pick up a couple of things. For those of you that can afford, there are apps like Scribd. I used to use Scribd. I stopped. I'd spend about $100 a year on Scribd and get access to lots of books. And, within one driving or whatever it is, I'll have listened to a book, finished, gone on to the next one. So there are many options that are available there for you to read. Thank you. I hope that has been helpful. Okay. SC, as a student, how can I invest in myself other than my education? Thank you. Good question. One, I think one of those things we've talked about, read widely. You will distinguish yourself by knowledge. Knowledge distinguishes people. Make no mistake. Those who don't invest themselves in extra knowledge, when they get into spaces where they are shallow. I can tell you, they will listen and then will figure out and say, I agree and all of that stuff. But they don't have depth. So read. 2, grow leadership is through service. In your church youth leadership group, go. Whatever the case, good, platform for developing leadership. Go and do all of those things. I used to felt like as a part-time student. This leading, the other. But those things, as done a couple of things. So serve. Hey, thanks so much for the presentation. Though I joined late, but I have learned something. Can you share with us names of the books? Okay, I will. The key book that I talked about here related to the topic of today is called By the Future by Mensa Otabil. Please, it's a thought-provoking book. It will challenge you, right? Good morning. I also went through college. Happy to have you by the sharing. Thank you very much, Simon. Peter here and I served on vice president. Great in this one. It's just small things done with great love. So just step out and Deborah Kisolo, thank you so much for the talk. It was really wonderful and thought-provoking. You talked about relationships we have. How do you navigate where the people around you are not looking to grow in the same way? Deborah, I'd like to request you to unmute yourself and speak a little more about this so that I can answer you.
Hello.
If I understand you, you talked about relationships grow in the same way. Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yes. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for your talk.
Yes, go ahead.
So, at some point in your talk, you were how the people who you have around you and how the people who are around you. And I was thinking if the space you find yourself in currently, most of the people are not, let's say, thinking in the same direction you're thinking. They're not thinking about growing themselves. They're not thinking about maybe buying their future. Is it your responsibility to teach them this? Are you supposed to just focus on yourself? Because I feel like also they can not actively deter you, but discourage you.
Right. There's a book I was looking for here. I can't find it. It's a personal growth book. It's called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. In there, it talks about the law of environment and how environment plays a very big part in your growth. There are two things. One, you have a choice. I don't know the kind of people they are and why they are part of your relationship. There could be one of two things you do. One, you fire those friends, you get others, or get others alongside those friends that are going to help you out. In life, you get to discover very often, somebody said you turn out as a sum total of the people around you, the top 5 people you surround yourself with. That is going to support you greatly in how far you go in your life. So if the people you have are not productive, if that's all you hang around with, I can tell you, Deborah, it's going to weigh you down. If you are growing, I can also bet you there are many people who want to associate with people who are growing. There are many people who are struggling. So have people with whom you share same interests. And so whether you go out and you're hanging out and you're doing whatever it is, that's okay. But make sure you have people. Have people who hold you accountable. You might say, I'm not letting you do this, but have another Jane, Sheila, John, who you know you connect with and you know they can hold you accountable as far as your growth or who are interested. That will make your life easier. But the environment plays a very big part. Have the right people. Okay. Thanks a lot, Esther. Send the message here.
Thank you so much. Is there any other question? Any other sharing? I think we are done because there is no more question. But before we go, I'd like to thank you so much. I'd like to thank our facilitators very much. Thank you so much, Fred. Thank you so much, Oxide Fred, for sharing with us today. I'm sure very many people have been impacted, and I'm sure that they are going to do something about it. I hope you are going to do something about it. Yes, and I hope you make proper, like you have a real plan to do something about it. I have written there the email for INT. I think I can get the list of books and share it with you. If you want to get the list of books, you can send me an email and then I'll respond to you. I don't know if they'll share with us the slides, but if they do, I can also send them to you. Yes, but thank you so much. I'd like to request one of us to just close us off with a closing prayer, preferably before you also give us a vote of thanks for the speaker, and then a closing prayer. And also,
thank you, Esther.
Sorry. Yes, please.
I said thank you. I was just going to throw this slide for those of you who've done many of my, heard me talk. It's one of those slides that I like, and I just pulled it up again. I thought I should share with you as we talk about. There's somebody who said, yeah, it's my son, I think, who says, yeah, I know what you're going to talk about. You know, there are three types of people. Those who know what they want and do, those who don't know, and, you know, and those who know what they want to do and don't do anything about it. But I want to remind you this. Everything we want in life is up here, unless you're not ambitious. Close your eyes, say, where do I want to be? If what you want is down here, then you're an exception. But habits are the gap between where we are and where we want to be, between success and failure. If you don't invest yourself right now in the right leadership, if opportunity does not meet preparedness, if you become a leader tomorrow, we are going to regret why you became a leader. The habits you choose will either build your muscles or weaken, and downhill habits will not take you uphill. So if you want to grow as a leader, if you want to grow up by the future, avoid the downhill habits. Too much sleep, not reading. Think about how much time you spend on your social media, how you spend your money, and you might think you're not earning a lot of money until you see what somebody who earns less money does with their money. Those of you who go alone, you know, so have accountability. Purpose, if I ask those of you who are on this call, how are you planning to grow this year? Make sure you have that clarity. And how are you going to grow? Have some people who know what you want to do. January has already come to an end. It's almost 10% of the year gone. What have you done? What have you achieved? What have you read? What goals have you? What is it that you have done? What you do today, everything you do today is either buying your future or trading your future. It's one of the two. No doubt about that. So pick that. Those are my last lessons. That is my last message to you. The future is cheap. The future belongs to those who live in it. And I pray you make a choice that when the opportunity comes and you are called on for a leadership role at whatever level it is, you will be ready because you have been investing yourself in the right knowledge. Great things happen when opportunity meets preparedness. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. I would like to request who can give us a closing prayer. Charlotte, will you be able to give us a closing prayer? Oh, there is a hand there. I don't know if someone has. Maybe Esther.
I had raised my hand.
Yes, please say. Please.
All right, let's humble ourselves for a prayer. Lord Father, we bless you for this day. We thank you that you've given us this moment to meet, to learn, but also, Father, to effect what we've learned going forward. We thank you so much for Mr. Chaka, that you have given the wisdom, the knowledge, but also the hard work that he has put in to be able to deliver this message to us. Father, Lord, may we not be hearers only, but also doers. May we effective in the littlest of what we've had for a better tomorrow, to invest today, Father, Lord, so that it is cheaper for us in the future. I pray for everyone that is on this call, this meeting, that, Father, Lord, they may go ahead and do some change. Do some change, Father, Lord. And so that we don't just appreciate, but that we can become good, great leaders to your glory. In Jesus' name I have prayed. Amen.
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 Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Remember, these webinar series are there every Saturday, apart from the second Saturday of the month. Yes.